and not convert it into demographic disaster. For more information, visit www.ignou.ac.in. Thank you.
Such as block 1 on which we will be discussing today. So block 1 is fibers to fashion, in which 5 units you have to study. Unit 1 is about fibers to yarn. Unit 2 is about sustainable fibers and fabrics. Unit 3 is about handling and detailing of fabrics. Unit 4 is hang tags and labels. Unit 5 is understanding value addition and retailing. So in this session, we will just focus on the unit 1 of this particular block 1, that is fiber to fashion. That unit 1 we will discuss fiber to yarn. Then block 2 of this course is about apparel production line and product development, in which 4 units you have to study, that is apparel line development. Unit 2 is about fashion trimmings. Unit 3 is product development, and Unit 4 is organization of lines. Then block 3 is about fashion trends, promotion and advertisement, in which 5 units you have to study. That Unit 10 is perspective of dress, culture and society. Unit 11 is scope of traditional handicrafts. Unit 12 is about innovations of traditional crafts. Unit 13 is about apparel product analysis, and Unit 14 is fashion advertisement and promotions. And the fourth and the last block of this particular course is about writing for fashion, in which 4 units you have to study. Unit 15 is about retail and fashion labs. Unit 16 is fashion forecasting. Unit 17 is fashion promotional writing, and Unit 18 is about global sourcing and merchandising. So learners, these total 18 units you have to study in this particular course, that is BFD 076 Textile and Fashion Retailing. So now let us start with the Unit 1, that is about the fiber to yarn. So as the name of the course is Textile and Fashion Retailing, so anything that we start to learn about the fashion industry, the first and the most important thing that we should be aware about it is about the fabrics and the fibers. So fabric are it is made up of the fibers. So now let us understand what fiber is and how it is converted into fabric. That all thing we'll be discussing in this particular Unit 1, that is about the fiber to yarn. So the main course structure, that all topic which you have to study in this particular unit is you will be studying about the spun and the filament yarns. You will be studying about yarn classification, yarn twist, what is about the yarn twist, yarn manufacturing system, yarn fineness measurement, and we will discuss in whole what all these is relevant for the fashion industry. So as we know, we are talking from the beginning about the fiber. So fiber, it is the basic or the main element of any fabric, we can say. So each fiber has its own importance in our daily life, but we cannot wear the fibers because we wear the fabric, because fiber is the raw form, and then it is converted into yarn, and then yarns are used to by different methods, whether it can be weaving or knitting, to develop the fabrics. So we need fabric for our daily use. It can be for the apparels, whether for our clothing, or it can be for the finishing or the furnishing of the any our household items or industry purpose. For anything, whether it is the clothing, furnishing or industrial purpose, we need the fabric. The fibers are converted into fabric, but before that they are converted into yarns, and we will be learning about the process of how the fibers are converted into yarn and then how they are converted into fabric. That all process we will be learning in this particular unit. So now the main question is what all information or the learning outcome you will be having from this particular unit, fiber to yarn. So learners, after going through this unit, you will be able to identify difference between spun, that is also known as staple yarn or staple fiber or the filament fibers. You will be able to discuss different types and qualities of yarn. You will be able to identify yarn types to end use performance. How many types of yarns are there and what are their end use, you will be able to identify that. Discuss the yarn twist and the yarn numbering system, that there are different twisting methods that we can use and what is the impact of that twist method that we can use according to the fiber or the yarn that we are using. And yarn numbering system is very important, that you will be able to discuss after going through this unit, and you will be able to elaborate the process used in manufacturing yarns from the fiber. What are different manufacturing process we can use for making a fabric using the different yarns, and how fiber is converted into yarn. So first of all, let us understand what is yarn. So yarn, we can say a yarn is a continuous strand of textile fiber, filament or material in a form suitable for knitting, weaving or otherwise intertwining to form a textile fiber or a textile fabric. So yarn, as it is defined by the American Society for Testing and Material, yarn is a generic term for continuous strand of textile fiber, filament or material which is suitable for knitting, weaving to form a textile fabric. So as you can see that if you have seen in a real cotton which we use in our daily lives, cotton, we cannot, cotton fabric, it is made up of that only cotton, but we cannot use that raw cotton directly for the clothing purpose or any furnishing, developing a furnishing item. So that cotton is converted into yarn, and then that yarn is processed to make the fabrics. So all textile fabrics except few which are non-woven, because some fabrics we have that are not developed from the knitting or the weaving process, but they are developed from the non-woven methods. So all the textile fabrics that we use except the non-woven are produced from yarns, or non-woven they can be directly developed from the fibers. So you will be learning about the process of fabric manufacturing, that is weaving, knitting and non-woven methods in this particular unit. And this unit you will understand the process of conversion from fiber to yarn and the various types of yarns. So the main two types of yarn that we have that we use, or the two types of fibers that we use for the development of yarn, is the spun or staple yarns or fiber, or the filament yarns. So spun yarn, that in very easy language we can understand, the spun yarn or the staple yarn, it is the fiber or the yarn which have the short lengths. Suppose the cotton or the wool, these are the examples of a spun yarn. So spun yarns are composed of short length fibers held together by some mechanism. It can also be understood as spun yarn that are continuous strand of staple fiber held together and generally the fibers are held together by twist or otherwise bonding staple fiber together to make a cohesive thread or a single yarn. So spun yarn fabrics are like cotton or wool. So it means that any fiber that is of short length, we can say it is a spun or a staple yarn or a fiber, and it is joined together or it is combined together to make a yarn for the further process of weaving, knitting or any non-woven textile. And then, or we can use any adhesive or a bonding thing to make it into a continuous strand for the making of the or the processing of the yarn. So in the picture you can see there is an example of a staple or a spun yarn, how the cotton yarn looks like. Then what is filament yarn? So filament yarn is opposite of the spun yarn or a staple fiber. That is, the filament yarn are composed of a long fibers. So the main example of or the common example of a filament yarn, we can say it is a silk fiber. So filament yarn are composed of long fibers and are further twisted. The filament yarns are generally smooth, as most of them are manufactured fibers and are made through extruding a polymer solution through a spinneret. So we can say the filament yarn, as right now we discussed, that spun yarn, they are short in length. So when we join any short length fiber together to make a yarn, it will not be in a smooth structure. And if we have the fibers in a very long length and the fiber or the yarn which is developed from that particular fiber, it will give a smooth structure or a lustrous structure for that. And most of the filament yarns that we have, it is of man-made or a chemically made fibers. That is, we can say it is a man-made fibers. So filament yarn can be composed of one single filament or many filaments known as the mono or the multi-filaments. Spun yarn can also be into man-made fibers, and filament yarn also available in the natural. That is, the main example is the silk fiber. So these are the two main types of the yarns which we have, that is the spun yarn or the filament yarn. Then what are the characteristics these two spun and the filament yarn have? So let us see the characteristics of spun or the staple yarns. So the main characteristic of spun yarn, it is that it is a short fiber twisted in continuous strand, has protruding ends, dull fuzzy look, lint or which have loose fibers. It is subject to pilling, like if it is a small length fiber and it is then converted into yarn, it is a chance that the fabric which will be developed, it may have the pilling on the fibers or the fabric. It is soil readily, it is warm, loft and bulk depend on size and twist, do not snag readily. Stretch depends upon the amount of twist. The twist, in which we discuss in the later slides in detail, it has an absorbent property, size often expressed in yarn numbers, various amount of twist used, and most complex manufacturing process. Because it is most of the spun yarns, it is found naturally. So the process of manufacturing the yarn, it is more complex than the filament yarn that we will discuss. Then what are the characteristics of filament yarn? So it is a long, continuous, smooth, closely packed strands, smooth and lustrous, do not pill readily, little loft and bulk. Snagging depends upon the fabric construction, the method of construction which is used, whether it is knitting or weaving. So it depends upon that. Stretch depends upon the amount of twist which is given to the yarns while developing the to fiber while developing the yarns. Absorbency depends upon the fiber content. Size and denier Usually very low and very high twist is given, and least complicated manufacturing process, as most of the filament yarns are through polymers and developed through the spinneret, so it is very easy for the manufacturing of the process. Then let us see what all classification of yarn we have. So basically the yarns we can classify in 4 parts. So first is on the basis of length. Right now we discussed that there are 2 types of yarns, spun yarn and the staple yarn. Then the second type of second yarn classification or second type we have is on the basis of numbers of strands. Like we have the simple yarns, single yarn, ply or the cord yarns. Then on the basis of type of effect created. So in that we have 2 types, the complex yarn or the novelty or the specialty yarns and textured yarns. And the 4th classification is on the basis of content, like we have the blended yarns or the combination yarn and metallic yarns. So blended yarn means that we combine 2 types or the 2 properties of the 2 different types of fiber together to create, or suppose one fiber has some properties which is absent in that, so we can combine 2 fibers together to create a blended yarns. So this is the main classification, 4 classification we have of a yarn. Then what is yarn twist? Like in the earlier we were discussing that the characteristic part that it depends upon the twist which is given to the yarn. So the twist means the purpose of yarn twist is to hold the fibers together in order to make the yarn strong enough for weaving. Because if we have the fibers and we want to make it into the thread and or yarns, if we how we will create? So using or combining that fibers together, we take the help of method which is called twist. So the purpose of yarn twist is to hold the fibers together in order to make the yarn strong enough for weaving, knitting or other construction for durability in wear, and to give the type of surface desired on the fabric. So any type of structure which we want to give on the fabric, we use the method of twist. So different fibers vary in the amount of the twist. So the amount of twist which will be given to the fiber, it depends upon the type of the fiber which we are using. And basically the direction of twist, we have 2 directions which we use. One is the S twist and second is the Z twist. So this defines the direction of a twist. So if you see after this session, you can just have an experience that you can take any thread and see very minutely what you can see or find the direction of the twist you can start opening very minutely that thread, and you can see in which direction that twist is been done on the particular yarn. So it can be in the S direction or it can be in the Z direction. So it determines the appearance as well as the durability and serviceability of a fabric. Suppose a warp yarn which is used for the lengthwise thread in a woven fabric are given more twist than the filling yarns which are used for the crosswise thread. So when we go for the fabric construction, the threads which we are using for the construction method, the warp yarn, so the lengthwise yarn which is used, it is given more twist than the weft yarn or the crosswise yarn. Then the direction of the twist. So as we discussed, there are 2 directions in which the twist can be done. First is the S twist, which is in the clockwise twisted yarn, and Z twist is the counterclockwise twisted. Twist is identified by the number of turns per unit length, turns per inch, or the turns per meter. So if we say we can take a thread or a yarn and we can see how many turns or the twist are there in particular 1 inch of that particular yarn, or any unit of length, or turn per meter of that particular yarn. So this is how we can identify the twist in any particular yarn. Then the TPI, that is, we can say the twist per inch or the turn per inch in any yarn. It is termed, used in the textile industry to identify how many twist is number of twist or amount of twist is given in the particular yarn, and what is the direction which is used, whether it is S twist or Z twist. So it measures how much twist a yarn has and can be calculated by counting the numbers of twists in a inch of a yarn. So all these, the method or the technical thing which we are discussing, that is how many numbers of amount of twist or turn is in a 1 inch of yarn is there. The method how you will analyze it is discussed in detail in this particular unit that you can learn, and we can count how many twist or turn has been given to that particular type of yarn. So the amount of twist can vary according and it depends on three components, that is length of the fiber. It can be whether it is staple yarn or it is the filament yarn. The twist per inch can differ. It can depend upon the size of the yarn, and it can depend upon its intended use or its end use, whether it is the fiber or it is developed for the apparel purpose or it is being developed for the furnishing or home furnishing purpose or any industrial use. So it depends upon the end use of that particular fiber. So this is the brief discussion we did on the twist. Now next information is about the yarn manufacturing system. Like right now we have discussed that there are different fibers and how fibers is then twisted to make it into yarn. And now we will learn about yarn manufacturing system. So twisting process by which fibers are formed into yarn is referred to as spinning. Like when we have the fibers, then it is twisted, and then we go for how the yarn is developed. It is developed by the spinning method. So spinning includes all the process required to prepare and clean the fibers from the opening of the ball to the twisting of the yarn in its preparation of for the textile loom. Like spinning includes all the process which is required to prepare and cleaning of the fiber which we have obtained, whether it is the cotton fiber. So it is taking from the raw material or the beginning process and taking it to the preparation for the textile loom. So in case of filament fiber, several common systems are used by the manufacturer in the spinning industry for the filament yarn. So filament yarn spinning requires very few stages, as the strands are in the long length. So it requires very less manufacturing stages. But when we talk about the spun or the staple yarns, it requires many stages because most of them are natural fibers and they need some cleaning and then different stages. So the molten fibers or the polymer of the synthetic is inserted into a vessel. After few colorations are done at the stages, and the solution will be pushed out through the spinneret to become different yarns. So in case of manufacturing the staple fibers, it requires several stages before staple yarns can be produced. So it starts with the opening and picking of the bloom room process. then carding is done, combing process is done, then drawing, roofing, and then spinning is done. With this process is used for the staple fibers, but filament fibers, all these stages are not required. Then preparation of the yarn for the fabric manufacturing. So the preparatory process the most important method of fabric manufacturing are the weaving and knitting. So however the yarn produced on the spinning frame is not in the right state of cloth manufacture, we must therefore consider the preparatory processes to which the yarn must be subject before it is ready for use on the loom or a knitting machine. So every stage we have to prepare the yarns for the final production of the manufacturing of the fabric. So the preparatory process can therefore be considered under the general headings such as winding, warping, sizing, and looming. So learners, in this particular session we discussed about the unit 1 of the course BFD 076, that is about the textile and fashion retailing, and we discussed about the process of fiber and the yarns. So in next session we will discuss the further details of this particular unit. Hope some of your queries has been solved, and if you have further query you can write a mail on dfdr@ignou.ac.in. We will be very happy to answer all your queries. Thank you.